Let's go to Montreal now. Eric Engels joins us from Sportsnet, and we really enjoy it because he's one of the busiest guys in the country right now. We appreciate it. How you doing, Eric?
I'm doing great.
Good. It's a little choppy there. It's a little choppy video, so hopefully we can get through this. How would you answer that question, by the way? What do you think is next for the Pittsburgh Penguins after losing out last night?
You know what? I'm so hyper on what's in front of me in terms of the Canadiens. I haven't even had a chance to really think about it.
Good answer. Good answer. It's fine. So speaking of that, then, let's talk about the big game tonight with Montreal, Toronto, and the Habs facing elimination. I mean, what was your prediction for the series going in? I assume you had one. Has the series gone the way you thought that it would?
My prediction was Leafs in 7, and I think it's still possible if the Canadiens find a way to assert themselves and play their game. And their game means playing as 5 guys in the picture in all 3 zones. And they've done it in the defensive zone to better effect than most people would. I understand that Marner and Matthews have 3 points each in this series, but through 4 games, most people would have said that's underperforming. William Nylander and Alex Galchenyuk have been dynamite together. Alex Kerfoot has been really good. But the Canadian job defensively, but the commitment they've shown, guys in the defensive zone, be there on offense, where they've only scored 4 goals in this series. And it's not just 3 forwards every time they hop on the ice that need to help them produce it. The defense has 0 points in this series, and it's because they're not implicated in helping to get the puck up quickly and supporting the rush and creating those opportunities where Toronto won't be able to just stand up at their line and force the Canadiens to lose possession, dump it in, and try to retrieve it. That's a big part of the game, and the defense needs to be more implicated.
Just throwing this out there, I had coffee with a head scout of a hockey team yesterday who feels the Habs have more injuries than they're leading on, and he by name mentioned Brendan Gallagher, Jeff Petrie, and Shea Weber. Is there any, because they just don't seem like themselves, is there anything to that?
Definitely. Shea Weber is not playing at anywhere near 100% with the injuries. I believe it's an injury that's going to require surgery when this is with. Brendan Gallagher is coming out of a broken thumb that he was out for 6 weeks. And, whether he's 100% in terms of recovery from that, the strength is probably not there in his hand the way it needs to be for him to shoot as effectively as he normally would. He's also had major issues with that hand, having shattered fingers on it before. And, also being out of rhythm for 6 weeks and then jumping into the playoffs is not an easy thing to do. It's the only reason he ended up playing a game with the Val Rocket as soon as he was healthy enough to play in a game, because the Canadiens ran out of time in the regular season to get him into one. And there was a cap situation too with Gallagher being on long-term IR. I don't know if Carey Price is 100% healthy. I don't know if Philip Deneau, coming off a concussion at the end of the season and jumping into this series, and healthy. Jeff Petrie is not looking and playing like a player who's 100% healthy. So you could probably go down the list. There's a lot of guys from the Canadiens, especially with their schedule, that are not healthy. But at the end of the day, the team deals with that as you get to this time of year. And if it wasn't the case of the playoffs, it becomes the case after 4 games are played. That's for sure. So the Canadiens need better from their best players, regardless of their health status.
From viewer Brady Witt, big Habs fan out here in Western Canada, he says, "Hey, Eric, could you share some insight on how Romanov isn't getting a chance today? I really do not understand it, and I'm quite frustrated, to be honest."
Brady, I totally understand where you're coming from, and I think everyone in Montreal is frustrated by that situation. Personally, I'm not frustrated. It doesn't mean anything to me, but I am perplexed by it. And I'm perplexed by it because I think Alex Romanov is a guy who can make a difference. The Canadiens had a week between their season ending and this playoff series started, where they could the issues that Alex Romanov was having down the stretch, where he really did struggle. Objectively, if you really love Alex Romanov, you have to watch the games towards the end of the year yourself. This guy is not playing well. It's a real struggle, and that's normal for a player that's 21 years old and playing in this league for the first time. The confidence that he had at the beginning of the year, where he was throwing stretch passes and making great hits and timing things well, wasn't there towards the end. But there was an opportunity to, much like they had to do some work with Jesperi Kotkaniemi, much like they wanted Cole Caulfield to watch the first couple of games to know what was going to be required in terms of the gear shift that goes into the playoffs. And look, Kotkaniemi was inserted into the series. He scored right away. He struggled like anybody else in the lineup, but at least he's playing to his ability in this series and can play a bit better, obviously. But same thing with Caulfield. He's inserted. He hasn't scored a goal yet, but he's created best chances. And I don't think this is just inexperience versus experience when it comes up. Ducharme leaned on Cole Caulfield for close to 20 minutes in the last game, so it can't be just about that. I think it's a predictability factor in Romanov's game and not wanting to start in there. The big struggles that pertain to Romanov's game are that to be hyperactive and overactive and do things and start running around to positions that he's not supposed to be in and trying to do the work of the goaltender while trying to do the work of his defense partner and trying to do the work of the back-checking forward. And at a certain degree, you have to do your own best of your ability to be effective. And I think that's the concern with him. But, one fan on Twitter just reached out and said, I'd rather go predictability of Romanov, predictably bad of Merrill or Gustafsson. And I think that's a really well-framed point that he's making. And again, I'm not frustrated by it, but I am perplexed by the fact that they're not giving this guy a chance. He does play at the height of his abilities. He can make a massive impact.
Wayne in Victoria says, watching, he says, every team has injuries. They need to play better to beat the Leafs. Sorry to say, for sure. Jamie is watching in Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia. He says, long road ahead, Eric, if the Habs want to make it to a Game 7 like you predicted. From Troy in Toronto, from Sober Athletic, where he says, can Carey Price steal some games and get the Habs back in it? I say no, but what are Eric's thoughts on Price?
Well, before I get there, that's exactly what I said. I said that if they're of course with some injuries, but every team is, and you just have to play better and win. As far as Carey Price is concerned, he can steal games for the Canadiens. It's got nothing to do with him. He's playing unbelievable. Even if 4 goals or 3 goals got by him in the last game, and one was empty net. I mean, what else do you want this guy to do? He's making Superman level saves. He can't score a goal. At the doing everything he can to facilitate the breakout for the Canadiens when the Canadiens defense is having an issue with it. Clearly, this is about as Dominic Ducharme put it, the other 18 guys in the sweater and what they need to come about to aid offense. And I think, as I said off the top here, that's a 5-man job when you're on the ice. Same way the commitment to whenever you hear people talk about how are you going to Matthews and how are you going to face Connor McDavid and Mitch Marner? Well, we need all 5 guys to do it. It's not just me and Shea Weber. It's me and Ben Sherrod. It's the same thing that you need on offense. It's all 5 guys that need to help produce it. And the Canadiens right now are disconnected. We heard Jeff Petrie talk about it in Game 4 or after Game 4, that they can't be looking for options to be there when they need to make a breakout pass, that they need to be there right away, because you don't have time to think in the playoffs. In the offensive zone, the forwards need options available to them too. And it can't just be the 2 other guys that the first forechecker is aligned with. It's got to be all 5 picture. And that's what Ducharme's system is supposed to be about. He talked about close support since he was hired by Bidens. It's time for the Canadiens to play that way and stop talking about how they need to fend off Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner and the Maple Leafs offense and the varied attack. And, John Tavares has missed 11 of 12 periods of this series. Molino has missed the last 2 games. William Nylander, Galchenyuk, and Alex Kerfoot have been dynamic in their absence, showing what the Leafs' depth is all about. But at a certain point, you need to make the Maple Leafs feel like there's something for 2. And the Canadiens have talked a lot about the vaunted depth of their team. And I believe that they do have the depth to score goals and the talent to do it as well. They need to start making worry about them.
Hey, last one, Eric. You obviously saw Mark Mathot's tweet about how this series has lacked intensity and it looks like a regular season game. And I couldn't put my finger on why I wasn't that down with this series, because it's Montreal, Toronto, man. Leafs and Habs. I agreed with him. How do you feel about those that say this has not seemed like an all-out war, Montreal-Toronto in the Stanley Cup playoffs?
I did that tweet beforehand. I don't necessarily fully disagree with him, but I do disagree to one extent. I think the Canadiens have tried to make it an all-out war, and you see it reflected in the hit totals and the way they're trying to play the game, but the game is getting called a little tighter than they're used to in the playoffs. And the Maple Leafs are a factor in this too, because they have ignored all that stuff and just played their game. And they've done that. Their composure level is a big reason why they're leading this series 3-1. They have not snapped with the cross checks. They have not engaged in the after whistle stuff. Wayne Simmons doing some talking from one end. They seem to be fully content to let Montreal hit them and try to do everything so long as the Canadiens are not focusing on playing the game. So I think that's part of the reason we look like that at times. I don't think there's velocity in here. I think there's a sense of frustration that's come about from the Canadiens not being able to score, and the Leafs' composure adding to that dynamic of not, focusing too much on the physical game and just playing hockey, which is working out really well for them.
Yeah, no kidding. Great answers, man. Yeah, you do a great job enjoying your stuff. Enjoy the game tonight, Eric, and thanks for the time today.
Thanks to you, and sorry if the video copy, but appreciate you having me on.
It was just fine. We've had way worse. Thanks, Eric. Eric Engels from Sportsnet Montreal joining us in advance of the big game tonight, Game 5, Montreal at Toronto on the CBC.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.